Welcome. Welcome to the Evolution of Marketing. I'm glad you all could join us. We have a very full deck today, so I'm going to get started right away and see other people continue to join us as we move along. But I do want to get started. I am joined today by Erica McClenny. Erica is the Senior Vice President of Client Services at Expion. You can see her Twitter handle there is her name. Very clever of you, Erica.
It was creative.
And I'm Jim Tobin. I'm founder and president of Ignite Social Media, a social media marketing agency in Raleigh and Detroit. We're glad you could join us today. But before we get too far along, Erica, why don't you go ahead and give us that gratuitous plug for Expion?
Of course. We know what we're talking about, so we got to get that in there. So Expion is a social media platform. We basically work both for social media management, marketing insights. Obviously, there's a ton of data. Everybody wants to know what they're doing in social. Is it working or is it not? Reputation management, and our new social advocator module, which helps you overcome your email database and be able to connect both through getting people to share to their personal profiles or really taking your employee and making those folks advocates. We do multi-channel support, everything from Facebook pages to Twitter accounts, Google. We were just whitelisted with Instagram to allow commenting back, so that's another great thing. You don't have to go native and have everything in one place now with us. So we cover a lot of ground.
And we've used it for 2 years or so now for our clients like Chrysler, Samsung, and others. It's an excellent tool, so I can vouch for that. Here's some details on that. There will be a Q&A at the end. All you have to do is tag your tweet with the hashtag for today. The hashtag is IgniteFBM, Facebook Marketing. We do have people in the room who are checking those and will be feeding us those questions throughout. And at the end, we'll send you an email with the deck, with a recording of the webinar, and with a white paper. So let's get started. Erica, take us back a little bit. Where were we just a couple of years ago when the kids were playing on Facebook?
They were playing. It was the college crowd. Everything started in a dorm room with a little brain power and definitely evolved. And it moved on to, initially, everybody had a Facebook profile, but for businesses, their first connection was groups. There's some major limitations with this. Back in 2007, there was over 100,000 groups at that point in time, but there was no SEO benefits. Everything lived within that group, and there really wasn't a good way for a brand to be able to connect and reach people through their newsfeed.
So I remember in 2007, we actually had for NatureMade, we had a person on our team called NatureMade Lisa who was just friending people.
Yep. Friends.
Yeah, it was the early community management, I guess.
Yeah, and so as Facebook kind of said, you know what, we've got to do something better, obviously long term, even though Mark Zuckerberg wasn't really that interested back in the day. Business, got to pay for the Facebook platform. It takes a lot of servers to keep a billion people happy these days. And so they evolved and they created fan pages. And these back in the day had become a fan, which really wasn't intuitive for people. Maybe you liked something, maybe you didn't. So that term actually was changed in about 2010 to like a page. Landing tabs were there as a default, so that was really Facebook's answer to this display market, where it gave brands the capability to put really large graphic images for people who weren't necessarily a fan yet and be greeted with whatever the message or the campaign was.
And these were the glory days. We had default landing tabs.
Default landing tabs.
We could get these were our clients, Bing and Samsung. We could guarantee, 10, 30, 50, 100,000 impressions on these default landing tabs. Not anymore.
Not anymore. It evolved to the timeline. So timeline, early 2012, there was a couple major brands that were kind of testing this out. Really large graphics that are allowed here. But probably the biggest key is the ability to still have tabs here, but all of the sponsored stories really started through posting. It also allowed brands to kind of give a back history. If it was somebody who's being introduced to your products or you wanted to create more stories about where your product had evolved or your company had evolved, timeline really allowed you to do that and set sort of that historic trend so people could look back about your business.
I like how you use stories, because I was at the Facebook marketing conference in New York when they announced this, and they went on and on about stories, and they were really talking about ads. But they pretended it was stories, which was nice of them.
It was a nice way to talk about yourself.
Stories can be done, but they were talking all about ads. So where we are today, things have evolved quickly, obviously, as Erica just gave us a really good summary of that. And it comes down to, with timeline, the importance of audience interaction. And in timeline itself, the news feed has evolved, and we've gotten into a lot of visual content. And I think Oreo is famous for this. That's an Expion client. It's gotten a lot of play for their Daily Twist campaign, which was truly an excellent campaign. and Old Spice did a good job too. And you can get the kind of exposure from this sort of content that begins to add up into millions, hundreds of millions, and even for some of our clients, we've seen over 1 billion impressions coming from this organic sort of content. So you can even get reach. But it turns out that this content has far-reaching implications, because we've got some research now for our Chrysler client that shows that, in fact, organic exposure to content drives better business results than paid exposure. So what we did through ComScore is look at people who saw our updates on Facebook naturally, which is on the left, and then people who saw our updates through paid promotion, sponsored stories, promoted posts, whatever the case may be. And you can see on the left, the organic side, that there was a 76% lift in going to a Chrysler Group site, so Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, or Fiat USA websites. And on the paid side, there was a 28% lift. So paid did well, organic did 3 times better. This was similar in likelihood to search for Chrysler brand search terms, 3 times better if it was organic. And if they went to a Chrysler Group web page, they visited 6 times more pages if they had seen the exposure than if they hadn't. And on the paid, they visited twice as many pages. So over and over again, the organic was 3 times better than the paid.
So do you think that was a premise based upon calls to action of getting people, or the quality of whatever you were showing them? I mean, was it Chrysler talking about themselves, or was it giving people a reason to go and be interested in finding more information?
So these were our steady, normal, regular updates of content. And when you're marketing cars, you can't every day say, buy a car, or your ad rank goes down. So they weren't overly call to action focused. But what I think you have is a combination of 2 things. One, discovery. If you feel like you discovered something that's more interesting and it sticks to you more than if it was thrust in front of you. And so I think people discount subtly and mentally the as soon as they see it's sponsored. They don't feel it's quite as important.
It's not as authentic.
Not as authentic.
Okay.
So I think that's the main reason. And you also saw this with another ComScore study with Starbucks that showed a 38% rise in incidents, purchase incidents. So people actually bought more coffee who saw the organic updates than the people who didn't. So it works. This crazy organic stuff we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of rich media attachments really drive that as well. If all you're doing is text, or all you're doing is really link, and you're taking people off the Facebook platform, you've got to have a really good blend that you're trying to interact in different ways.
Absolutely. So I think the natural question that comes from that is, well, how can you get enough reach? And if I'm going to get reach, I have to buy that. And I think that's a mistake. And so let's talk first about organic reach. I mean, here's Nike, right? 17,000 likes, 623 comments, 1,300 shares, but sort of easy for them, right?
Yeah, you got to do it.
It's
not hard. You just do it.
But, I think some people say, well, I don't get to work on Nike, I don't get to work on Jeep or Oreo, these other brands you mentioned, and that's a fair point. Our very first client was Nature Made, the vitamin company, and I can tell you, after years working on that people do not wake up in the morning and tweet, took my vitamin C again.
Got my Nature Made today.
Yeah, didn't die.
Yeah, and maybe you don't want to tell people you're taking vitamins.
That's right.
Yeah, so we've got Coca-Cola, and that's a very different messaging than H&R Block and financial services, or JD by Ryder's a customer of ours. They do a lot of, people with bad credit scores. You don't want to talk about the fact that you have bad credit. So how do you engage with them? It's hard. Yeah,
it is hard, but I think if people don't take the time to think about why they're in social and what they have to offer the conversation, buying ads is not going to solve that.
Totally agree.
Even though lowermybills.com continues to show up in my Facebook page.
That's the third time today you've mentioned that.
They're starting to annoy me a little bit. But you can also manufacture reach, and so gamification, contest promotions, incentives, gaming, even things without a promotion. Intel did a great Museum of Me promotion where people created their own museum of their life and shared it. So there has to be a sort of an incentive, an eye in these promotions that get people to share. This is a promotion we did for Jeep when they were introducing their Jeep Wrangler Arctic Edition, and they were sponsoring the Winter X Games. So we did a promotion where you could enter to go to the X Games and dig in the snow to try and get yourself a Jeep Wrangler Arctic Edition. And the main purpose of this was to leverage this X Games sponsorship. And it did in fact work, because we rewarded you with additional entries by sharing, and we got 25,000 of those shares, and in doing that, 120,000 new fans. So the nice part of this too is we're trying to leverage a sponsorship, and during this time we had a big increase in the number of online brand mentions of Jeep. Right. And so that supported the brand objective of leveraging the sponsorship by orchestrating reach through gamification.
Yeah, and I think that's really shifted over the past couple of years. It used to be that fan frenzy concept. I want to do an application because I want to get likes, and that was back when you could like gate. We've seen some financial institutions who, it's not a very fun brand. It is a very, very seasonal brand, and they've had huge stats with their applications. They did a contest and went and had over 2.4 million views of their application. They had almost 1 million entries into that app, and this was over a 5-week period. And their goal was not to grow fans. That was just a residual effect, and they had a 184% increase in the amount of likes they generated on that page. So I really do think it's about what metrics you want out of it, but it's definitely shifted. It's not just gather fans. It's generate reach, generate stories, and continue just to try to capture more information about your brand.
Yeah, and I get asked a lot. It sounds like contests or sweepstakes, you seem to come back to those a lot, and it's really about an incentive to share.
Yes.
And contests and sweepstakes is one. I think the Intel Museum of Me was here's something cool about yourself. But Applebee's, another XBeyond client, I remember when you ran the Top Fan promotion, that was only a $50 gift card.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't a big incentive.
It doesn't need to be a big incentive. It also can be something where you can use it for user-generated content. So if you're asking them to post photos of them at your business, if you're asking them to share a story about why they love, Applebee's has also done some things with March Madness where they did kind of the fan smack talk last year, and people were bantering back and forth about teams that they were really excited about during the Final Four and March Madness. And that was great because everything was being stories about why people loved watching the game at Applebee's, but Applebee's wasn't really what they were talking about.
Right.
So there's ways you can harness what's going on as far as events.
Right, figuring out the I in this. Why would I want to share this?
Exactly.
And sometimes it's natural, Nike or Jeep, and sometimes you have to be a little more clever. So focus on the I with a clear call to action, and people share because they share funny stuff because they want to feel funny. They share breaking news because they want to feel in the know. So realizing that and realizing the sort of rationale of why people get involved is important, and getting them to respond. If you want them to share, tell them to share. If you want them to like, tell them to like.
It's kind of similar to my daughter. She's 7. If I tell her what I need her to do, it's the same thing in social. I just need you to take an action. Please follow my instructions. And then to your point again, that kind of rich media concept of having a really great photo without even a caption will make somebody generate and share information and create that reach without you even trying.
Yeah, we still see a lot of fan pages treating this as a broadcast platform, and it's not your most effective broadcast platform. If
you read it out loud and it sounds like a radio ad, not going to be an effective post.
Absolutely. So let's talk about paid reach. I just bashed paid a little bit. I didn't say it was ineffective. I said it was less effective than organic. In fact, let's talk about that a little bit. These are Facebook click-through rates as of June 2012, and you can see none of them have quite reached anything worse than 99.9% ineffective. And I think this is interesting because if we think back to the promise of social media advertising, it was that they were going to know so much about us that they would serve us ads we would like to see. And I think it's interesting that Facebook itself has sort of quietly abandoned this now. They talk about retargeting. They talk about custom audiences. They talk about lookalike audiences. They're no longer talking about we have so much data on your likes that we're going to be able to serve you this amazing content because the click-through rates are horrible. And yet, what do we do as marketers? We take them from $1.86 billion in 2010 to $5.74 billion in ad spend in 2012. What could $5.74 billion have gotten in a content generation budget?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I'm sitting here biting my tongue. As a Facebook PMD company, I'm going to agree to disagree with you. I think it's really about time and place and what your goal is. Obviously, Facebook ads serve a purpose. If you are using that to improve EdRank, try to reach more of your fan base that you already have. If you are trying to drive traffic to offsite, maybe you're trying to drive to your .com, there's great ways that you can measure that against other digital means like an email campaign or a homepage takeover that you're trying to drive people over to purchase. But it's time and place. And I think it's also, there's a lot of companies out there that just throw money against the wall and they don't properly optimize that spend, and they don't pay attention. It's not a set it and forget it type of advertising. It's not television where you always know when it's going to be on and off. So it's relevancy, and it's paying attention, and it's retargeting. Those things all feed into what your metrics are going to be, because if you just stick an ad and say spend $500 or $5,000 or $500,000 and you just let it rip, the lifespan of advertising without having it tweaked is very short. So you've got to pay attention to make sure you're optimizing. So I don't know what you'd get for $5 billion, but I certainly could get you a lot of impressions if I had time to play.
Absolutely, but I think I don't disagree with you. I think the larger point is when I see the brand spend multi-million dollars on a fan acquisition program with no social promotion on that page, I bristle. I don't think this spend should be zero or anywhere close to zero, but I think relative to what's being done organically, it's out of whack.
No, it's completely out of whack, and especially on the EdgeRank side of things. If you're going to spend all this money to generate these new eyeballs or new folks to be able to talk to, you have to get them talking back to you, or they're going to die off very quickly, and your brand's going to fall right out of their newsfeed. Absolutely.
And a reminder, if you have any questions about any of this, the hashtag is IgniteFBM, Ignite Facebook Marketing. IgniteFBM is the hashtag, and we are monitoring it. I've got my genius team
We're getting thumbs up
actively through the Twitter stream. Oh, yeah, they got a new
I'd like to know if people agree or disagree with us. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Should we do more ads? Should we do less ads? Is Erica right or is Jim right? And it's my team, so only tell me the people who tweet that Jim is right.
I'm sure. It's good.
There, you got me there. So a good example of paid, we did this program for Radisson, 50 years, 50 days, 50 rooms to celebrate their 50 years in business, obviously. And we had a different influencer, a different blogger, promote this and give away a room each day, 50 days in a row. You had to come to the Facebook page to figure out today's blog and be driven to that. And we did use advertising in that case. We did use promoted posts, and they were a catalyst to more fan engagement. They were a catalyst to activation, and so they were therefore effective. And I think when you have a social promotion, that driving to it makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
And it worked. I mean, we got a lot of clicks. We weren't looking for fans, but 10,000 came moseying along and drove people over to it. So it can work either way, driving to a promotion, or if you have fan acquisition, please have a promotion to engage them quickly. So talk about some of this optimization we can do here.
All right, so I'm going to throw something that's not in our deck and just completely take you off whack here for a second. So localization. Part of XBeyond's focus is we help multi-location customers and the ability to spawn sponsored stories across hundreds or thousands of locations. Do you think that's more effective than taking sponsored stories or page posts and targeting them against the brand page audience? Or do you think a local ad, even with a $25 or $50 spend, is more effective to generate reach?
Oh, I'm confused by the question, but I
think 1,000 location-based ads that are all targeted to local pages versus 100 DMA-targeted ads off of a fan base of 5 million
local
people.
Pages. Am I wrong?
No, you're completely spot on. We've seen,
good.
Depending on the business,
over here.
he's like, oh, what's the wrong answer? Depending on the business, and obviously the call to action, so it goes back to content, is we've seen up to 30x results off of local sponsored stories. So, we're going to talk here in just a second about kind of parent-child and localization and how those things feed into some of the new graph search. But big results of localized ads versus just going brand level.
And doing that via dark posts?
I'm actually against the dark posts for certain situations. Sometimes it's relevant. If you don't want to necessarily spam your fan base and you need to get something into the newsfeed, it obviously starts with a post. So you have to look at what your cadence is of how much you posted that day. So time and place. But most of the time we are posting or suggesting to our clients that they go ahead and post out and then amplify that with a page.
So geo-target the post and then amplify it for the same geo?
You can do geo that way. You could do the same. Or with local posts, obviously, with XBeyond, you can post out to, I can post out to 1,500 Facebook pages.
Right.
And then create 1,500 sponsored stories off of that that's properly targeted to those fans or the location.
Okay.
So if I have 1,000 stores, I can target all of them uniquely with a 10-mile radius around each store.
Okay. Dark post might be good for A/B testing some messages.
Dark post could be A/B testing. It could be if you maybe had some type of contest or major promotion and you wanted to send out several posts throughout the day. You don't necessarily want to post 5 times to your brand page that day. Dark posts can give you that in between.
And for those of you not familiar with dark posts, they are, you used to have to post to your page and then promote it. Now you can write the post now, have it not appear on your news feed and still promote it. That's a dark post.
Exactly. You're not hitting your fans' news feed.
Right. Any other touch points here?
Yeah, I mean, segmentation I think is really interesting. So I alluded to that contest earlier where we had almost the million signups for that. And we did some really creative work with custom audiences where it was a 5-round situation, so it was round by round that people could play. And we used the people who had accepted the app permissions and targeted to them and their friends to try to get us a stronger CTR. That worked really well, so I would consider that a type of segmentation. But I think it's important that you look at your insights. Who is your fan base of your page? That's different brand to brand. Is it more male, more female? Do you want to be able to target against your competitors? So obviously, would Nike target against people who like Adidas? Would Home Depot target against Lowe's? Would Coca-Cola target against Pepsi? That would be something really smart to do, obviously, to see does that get you a better result than if you're just going really broad.
Okay. Mobile, so we all use our phones a bit more, and that's certainly changed things. I think what the data I saw is about a 4% drop in time on the desktop and I don't remember, 50, 60 something, 70% rise in time on mobile devices for social networking. The mobile was at the time smaller, the data I saw, smaller than the total desktop time because I think there were longer sessions on a desktop than on a phone. Mm-hmm. The phone and then when they're line.
More page views.
Yep. But it's clearly important. A year ago, we were seeing about 3% of our clicks for clients. So 6% of our clicks for clients were coming from mobile devices. Within 6 months later, it's up to 34%.
Yeah, I mean,
now we can routinely see over 50.
Yeah, that's a huge insight. And Facebook literally line items out. Is it where are those clicks or views coming from? That's a really important metric for brands to be looking at. And then optimize your content against that. I know January 2013, Facebook did announce that people are using mobile basically went over what the web time is. But to your point, I think people stay longer on the web than they do on their phone.
Yeah, and so Facebook has been not helpful, particularly in these sort of promotions that we talked about that generate buzz and generate sort of these social actions. If you aren't careful, if you do with a normal program for a Facebook tab or app, I sort of use the words interchangeably, and you put it out on mobile, you get this 404 page. There are ways around it that have varying effectiveness and take varying lengths of time to deal with.
And they cost more money for brands who have to build a mobile optimized version.
Yes. Now Facebook has rushed to get these low performing ads into our newsfeed. Well, so kudos there.
Well, what was that? The loweryourbills.com?
Yeah.
One of those today. I don't know.
So they, and I don't really blame Facebook. They've gone to public. They have to hit their quarters. But it would be great if they spent a little money solving this 404 error. Otherwise, we're going to naturally build our promotions outside of their Chrome, off their platform. We're going to make them pan-locational is the word we're using for that. We're going to make them work where you can log in with Twitter, you can log in with Google+, and suddenly, millions of page views are going to disappear from Facebook because they can't solve this, and I don't think it's that difficult a problem.
No, I just don't know if it's not been prioritized because the mobile advertising wasn't quite there yet. I think the other thing to consider is some of the negative feedback that you see in commenting may change when this actually comes to fruition, because I can't tell you the number of times our clients give us feedback, or I can go and look at data sets and see people complaining that they hit that application, or they were sponsoring and they didn't make it web only to push to an app. And you get backlash from that. So be smart about your targeting too. If you are driving to an application, just exclude mobile.
Yeah, when we were doing 6% click-through, you could deal with that. But if it's creeping up toward 50%, that's a huge loss in efficiency. Now, Facebook is making money. They're doing that, which I don't begrudge them making money, even though I'm being sarcastic about their priorities.
They got to pay. That's a lot of server power.
They do, and so we're seeing that about 64% of their user base is active on mobile, but only 23% of their ad revenue came from mobile. So they've got a ways to go, and I don't think they're going to slow down much until this gap is closed.
Yeah, I know it's a key priority in every meeting I've had.
And they're getting backlash. People are saying, this is something where they're being too aggressive. And, there is a drop-off now, which we'll talk about later, among the youth set who's disappearing from Facebook very quickly. People like me who like the platform and are on it a ridiculous amount are complaining about lowermybills.com a similar amount of times. That sort of messaging that we expected on the internet, but we didn't expect in social networking. So Facebook's got some thinking to do here.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have tested some things. I tend to see a lot of things come through mine that we had to call the other day that your screen didn't look like my screen on Facebook.
Right.
So I see a lot of fun stuff that's coming. Some of it feels a little, close for comfort. Home screen logout, still trying to scratch my head over that one, but their claiming stats are really great, and they've got to be competitive with all the other digital set out there.
Yeah, and speaking of home, we kind of touched on a different use of this, but they have done something for mobile, fairly big recently, and that's Facebook Home, where on certain phones, a limited number of phones right now, and coming to most Android phones soon.
I think so.
You were able to install Facebook Home, which sort of brings Facebook front and center. Okay, so I equate everything to my mom. Would my mom be offended that she's watching Talking Heads bobbing on her cell phone? Answer probably yes. And then we had a discussion this morning talking about then all of a sudden an ad is served to me for, go buy XYZ or click here to go somewhere else. I'm TBD on how this is ultimately going to go down. Yeah, I think brands, we work for brands, both of us.
Right.
They're going to want this space. They're going to want to buy ads.
Prime real estate. I want to be the talking head, of course.
But, I thought it was interesting that Facebook was silent on it during the announcement because that's a really tough decision between utility and income.
Yeah, and to your point, you don't want to drive more people off the platform by making them feel like you've captured too much of their attention. So.
Yep. So mobile marketing, it's changing very rapidly, and you can do some targeted advertising for brands. We're watching Facebook Home to see, this says creates a persistent brand presence. I think it creates a persistent Facebook brand presence on the home screen, and we'll see if they allow other brands that real estate. Tough question for them.
Exactly.
So where are we going now? What's some of the stuff to look at, Erica? You really, you guys work a lot with this parent-child issue.
Oh, we live in this world.
Is this your 7-year-old?
Yeah, that's a different parent-child.
Okay.
That's when I'm home. That would be interesting to go global with that, though. It has definitely evolved. They now have global footprints. So if Trident is a great example of this. If you want to go take a look, you can regionalize. So we have a lot of clients. Oreo takes from the geo-targeting approach versus Trident actually wanted to empower. If I'm in Brazil, I am served my Brazil version of the Trident page. It's all linked up to their brand, and this is a great way for whoever owns that brand to be able to access all of their country level pages, but yet it can still be very localized and feel very authentic to all those different parts of the world. Excuse me.
So this is Facebook global pages.
This is Facebook global pages, but from a technical standpoint, I can log into one place and get to all of them. Mm-hmm. So that makes it a lot easier than adding the admin to every single page, or if there's an agency in Brazil versus an agency in Mexico and here in the United States, whoever that company is that owns that, they have to chase down administrative access to all of those.
We have cautioned our clients against going this route because it does require that in this example, someone in Brazil, someone in Canada, someone in Colombia.
Yeah, it's all about strategy.
Being active.
Yeah, it's all about strategy, and you don't want to have a dead page. You don't want to have the Brazil fans serve something that is, 3 weeks old, mm-hmm. and then have a really active Mexican page. So you want to make sure that that's part of your strategy, and that if you're going to go down this road, to your point, you've got the people power to support that.
Absolutely.
Now, local's been around for a while. I actually wrote an article on this a couple years ago. This is something that is feeding into all of the new nearby and the graph search. For those of you who don't know, Applebee's is a great example. They were way ahead of the game. We've been working with them for over 3 years. They have almost 1,600 live active Facebook pages out there. There's a lot of other brands that have followed suit. That literally means 1,600 conversations going on at any given moment. They have about 5,000 active users. But this locations map syncs all of those local pages. So if I find the brand page, I can click on that map and it will dynamically update based upon my IP and show me all of the locations nearby, and then I can click through to their local pages and see what's going on those actual footprints. So it's really a great way for the multi-location clients or companies to be able to tie back local to brand.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have told my clients to run.
You would have told me I was like crazy.
Yeah, running 1,600 pages would have been impossible, but now you can have local flexibility and the ability to push to all these pages.
Yeah, you still need governance to know what's going on because those are different data points. But yeah, see, I was forward thinking.
You were.
Pushing the envelope.
You were. And you talked about nearby, and so graph search.
Yeah, so I mean, these localizations, I mean, Google's had this down for years where I could Google and find things that were close by to me. Facebook's catching up now. The brands that have already established their places, regardless if those are active timelines with conversations, they're going to be winning. So for those of you who have not jumped onto that boat, you definitely need to. You can see here in this couple of shots, I can look for places named Applebee's. I can also start, it's going to be feeding off of where my friends have gone or checked in. I can see photos there on the right of people who've been in these places, and I get a map. So this is really going to tie back both putting the brand voice into action where people can actually go find and walk into your businesses if you're a brick and mortar type company.
Yeah, really, between graph search and what Bing is doing with Facebook integration and what Google is doing with Google Plus integration, your whole social strategy, if you're multi-location, could change. Potentially should change.
It needs to change.
But if you're a construct like Applebee's where you have thousands of locations, you're more likely, I should phrase it this way, you're more likely to show up in Google searches if you have active local pages sharing content, getting +1s.
Absolutely.
You're more likely to show up in Facebook, Bing searches with Facebook rather, if you are having active pages with likes on them as well. So those kinds of things are changing search engine optimization. The fact of saying, well, we rank first is almost an outmoded thing to say, because you may rank first on my page and rank 5th on your page. People are being served totally different content.
Totally different content, and it could be off of how often I've engaged there and how many friends do we have that are similar, how many friends live in the same areas, what types of things I was talking about this week. If I was talking about that I wanted to go out for karaoke and then I started looking for restaurants that had also been doing posts and updates about karaoke, those could be served up, and 2 weeks later I could be served something completely different. So all of that I think is really going to feed. Google Plus is a whole nother webinar. We need to cover that later. But it's a big race out there to try to capture that local, which feeds into mobile as well.
Yeah.
What I look for on my phone or where I check in is also feeding into what my friends see when they're searching for things nearby.
Right. A lot of brands have their search people over in one part of the floor, and their social people in another part of the floor, and one or both sides may not have realized just how much they're impacting each other today.
Yeah, they're definitely needing to play nice here coming up immediately.
Absolutely. So fragmentation, we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I asked her if she had seen my photo on Facebook, and she just said, "Oh, Dad." And like, Dad, I haven't been on Facebook in a month. And then she went on Facebook and gave me a gratuitous like. I was like, all right, thanks. So, teens are definitely tiring of Facebook, and I think it's a couple of reasons. One, because I'm on it, is why maybe my teen is
not cool anymore.
Yep. Even though I've been on it longer than her. And plus, I think, it's interesting, the correlation between the rise of advertising revenue and the drop-off in teen usage is nearly perfect. Inverse correlation there. As ad revenue goes up, the teens are going away. Can't say that's the cause, but I find it interesting. Mm-hmm. And Instagram is a pretty pure platform. Snapchat is, that sort of one-to-one kind of thing that we can't track, because my teens know I can watch them on Twitter, I can watch them on Instagram, and I can't watch them on Snapchat, so I think there's some liberation there. But I'm starting to feel like, and in fact I'm writing a book on this that'll be out in about the next 90 days or so, we're moving into a post-Facebook world. And what I mean by that is that this era This 2-year window we had where we could reach any demo on Facebook is over. Now, right now, the young people, sort of 15 or so, are dropping off, and a lot of brands don't care too much about 15-year-olds. Some very much do. Others say, people don't buy my thing until I'm 30. But if that trend continues to age up, as I expect it will, we're going to need to be across multiple platforms. We're going to need to have a strategy, a social media strategy that is not the same as a Facebook strategy.
I completely agree with you. I mean, every channel has a different purpose, in my opinion. And if I have so many brands that come to us and say, we want to use your platform because you cover so many bases. Okay, great. What is your goals with each of these? We don't know. We just know we're supposed to be there.
Right.
Twitter, if you are going to tweet 24 hours later, it is not relevant. You're gonna make a fool of yourself. Facebook, if all you're going to do, to your point about content, talk about yourself, talk at people, no calls to action, and to get them sharing to their friends about your business, you're not going to be successful. The Instagram purchase, I think, is going to be very interesting how that ultimately ties in. I know that's a huge data point for Facebook, but I find it amusing that it's so photo heavy that Facebook used to be so text and link heavy.
Right.
It's a good blend between the two, but personally, I'll share a picture faster than I'll share a status update of text. So maybe that will end up being with the cameras and mobile and everybody snapping photos. That could be Facebook's play to not lose that audience.
Yeah, and I thought with the last newsfeed changes they rolled out where you could look at just photos and they made photos bigger, they really sort of Instagrammed the newsfeed. They're trying to stay relevant. And just to be clear, even if everyone on the planet sort of decided today that Facebook was no longer cool, it would still be the behemoth social network for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and you look at Instagram, if they monetize anything off of Instagram, that's still revenue for Facebook.
Right.
So it all goes to the same bucket.
Right. I mean, you saw when MySpace declined, how long that decline was.
Wait, it's back, didn't you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, though.
I got an invitation from Zena Weist. I signed up once, and I don't think I've been back since.
I've been in there a couple times trying to understand why I would do it when there's Spotify and Pandora and Twitter right now.
I'm scratching my head as well. Sorry, MySpace.
JT, you missed one.
That was good, though.
So in summary, to sum up the major points in the webinar, and remember, send your questions along to Ignite at the end. Earned is better than paid, but paid certainly has its role. And I think if you're going to look for ways to use your media budget, they should be to amplify.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amplification. It's also having very clear KPIs. What do you want out of that spend? Do you want fan growth out of that spend and then have a plan to be able to keep those people engaged? Do you want to drive traffic to an e-commerce solution or .com or sign-ups on an application or a contest? And then what are your metrics behind that? The residual effect of that generally is fan growth. Or is it just you want to promote and increase your edge rank and be in front of more of those eyeballs that you've already paid or you've already captured through organic reach? Those are all things that you have to measure and have very clear definitions on when you start spending money.
And if you look back at the measurement part of it, we did a webinar a couple months ago with Tom Webster on ROI models. So one thing you can do on your earned content is quantify what it would have cost to buy that organic exposure.
Yeah.
And if it's better, more than $1 per dollar, you are getting more out of your earned than you get out of your than you would have gotten. It would have cost to buy it.
Got it.
Easy for me to say. So check that out on our website if you're interested in how to measure this and how to show your boss that it's working. The second point is you got to assume that you're holding a tablet right now.
I am. I'm watching Twitter as we're talking here. I mean, mobile's not a thing that you just think about after anymore. Mobile is as much of your focus as all of your other marketing strategies, and you have to have an integrated plan. Even from a content optimization, you can target content or ads mobile specific, or you can target those web specific. And I think the more tools Facebook's going to give us on the mobile side of things, you need to be thinking about what is the screen size? What is somebody actually going to see on that post when they're looking at it in a very small space versus what they're looking at on their computer needs to disrupt that newsfeed and capture their attention, because there's a lot going on Facebook screens right now.
Yes.
You've got chat bars, you've got lowermybills.com on the right rail, you've got your friend's post from last night, And that good content has to be something that is a showstopper, whether it's mobile or if it's web.
Yeah, now Facebook, to their credit, has done a very good job with the variety of advertising options that there are.
They do.
To let you target properly. I think really my frustration has come with who is using it and how they are using it more than the tool from Facebook itself. I think people are using it because they haven't figured out any other way to get into our news feeds organically, and so they're trying to interrupt us like they did with TV ads. That's where my frustration comes from. And content. We decided today that we're going to invest $5.7 billion on content creation, right?
That's a lot.
That is a lot. We're happy to help with that.
That would be the Ignite plug.
Yep. No, but really, it comes down to if advertising is storytelling, if advertising is on social media is somebody who's trying to get an update on their ex-girlfriend or what they're up to or what their friends did last night or the things we're doing in social media, we have to find content that says, come play with us, come distract yourself for a minute from your true friends and engage with us as brands. And one of the people, I think it was the BuzzFeed guy, said in a recent speech, I don't share because I like your brand. I share because I like my friends. And if you think about that, there's genius in that. Why would this person take the moment to give this to their friend? It's not altruism. It's not doing your brand a favor. It's because you have content that they want to share.
And I've got another one. Please stop with the cats.
You're fighting the whole internet right now.
I know, and I'm going to take it head on. You can tweet at me all day long. Cats and babies in diapers. I'm over it. Those don't count as content in my book.
Cats and diapers?
Cats and diapers.
Okay.
Not in any particular order.
So we've got some questions, but please keep them coming. The hashtag is, again, IgniteFBM, Facebook Marketing. You can also tweet at our handle, which is IgniteSMA. But right now we'll share a couple of the questions that have come in and wrap this up. Rebecca, you said every channel has a different purpose. If you have to give a unique purpose for each channel, could you do it?
Oh, okay. Here's my caveat. Expion is not a strategy and consulting company. We are a technology company. However, I think the purpose, I'll start with Facebook. That's probably where I live 18 hours a day. I think the purpose of Facebook is to get people talking about your product or your business or their experience with that. So I think stories is key. It's not a broadcast channel. And however you need to do that, that's obviously different for each business. But Facebook to me is user-generated. I think Twitter is relevancy, that you're paying attention to what people are saying about you and that you're there as close to real time as possible. On an interesting level, if your brand is a cookie, you need to be looking for people who are talking about snack attacks and cookies and not just your brand name, versus people looking for things to do. Hilton Suggest does a fantastic job at that, where they will look at DMA conversations of people going, what's a great place to eat in Dallas? And Hilton will come in and interject and say, hey, you should go try such and such a restaurant. And it's nothing about coming to stay at their hotels necessarily, but it's top of mind and being in those conversations. Instagram, I think, again, is looking at user-generated, repurposing that to other channels. You can use that as a content source to post out to Facebook, which then doesn't necessarily interrupt your friend's gym if you want to send a fun picture of somebody having a good time. And then blogs and web, if we start getting into that world, obviously they've been around for a while. And you just got to make sure those are mobile optimized. If you're sending people there through social, you need to make sure they can see what you're trying to get them to when they arrive.
Yeah, I think you have to ask yourself that question before you go on each channel. What's the purpose of it? I'm going to spend time. Time is money, whether I do it in-house or through an agency. Time is certainly money, and you have to decide that. And we've had clients who came to us and say their SEO agency wants them on Pinterest for SEO benefit. Well, Pinterest is no follow links, so I'm not really sure.
Not really a lot of benefit.
Bad counsel, but thinking about how Pinterest was problematic for a while because you couldn't really track back to anything, and so it was very tricky. They've gotten a little bit better with Pinterest analytics, but if you start with the platform, you're in the wrong place. You need to start with your target audience, what they care about. The social media is a cocktail party analogy.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back to what our business objectives are and how do those two align. And only after you come up with the strategies do you worry about where to do that. Do you have a lot of photos? If not, can you get them? And for a lot of brands,
sometimes they can't.
Yeah, that's a real struggle.
Or do you need to have sign-off that you're going to use those photos?
Right.
That's why Instagram's so fantastic, because it is public, and if you source back to who is using or who created that picture, that at least gives you sort of that quote-unquote copyright coverage there. Pinterest is an interesting one. We haven't touched on that at all. I know it was Facebook focused, but are you seeing that come up more and more as sort of the next hot thing that you've got to be able to give some guidance on?
It was crazy popular about 6 months ago, but
Okay.
it's still it fits into certain brains, and it's a great way when you've got something to say that's visual, either that you're creating or that an audience is creating around your topic. It can be very effective that way. But just totally lost my train of thought. So I'm going to switch. Can you share an example of a Facebook offer that generates buzz and contributes to growth of fans as well as ROI? That's a good question, and I think it comes back to what did you exactly mean by ROI? I think we say ROI a lot when we don't mean ROI. ROI in terms of actually, I did this program that cost $100,000 and we made $400,000 in sales.
Right.
Everyone wants to do that. Very few brands. Oreos can't do that. Chrysler can't do that. You can't link e-commerce back to cookie sales or car sales. So it can be very challenging to track that all the way through. But if you look at general return instead of ROI, and particularly sort of relative return, did I get more from this than I got from my banner ad budget? Did I get more than I got from this other place I could spend my marketing money? You can have some interesting discussions there. But so the Jeep example that we gave generated buzz and contributed to an enormous rise in conversation right during a key sponsorship. Now that is a return. That is not ROI.
Right.
We don't know how many Jeeps were sold as a direct result. So, but it also gets the point of don't try to have too many calls to action. If you want somebody to buy, that's one kind of post. If you want somebody to like, it's another kind of post. If you want somebody to share a funny photo, it's a third kind of piece of content. You can't expect one to do all.
They're not the same measurements. No, they're not the same measurements. And so I was just at a conference last week talking about this exact topic of when you're a major brand and you've got television running and other digital display and print and whatever you're doing for your marketing strategy, if you're going to do something in social, make it the only place you're going to do it. So example, I'll go back to the Applebee's example, it just popped in my head. It's karaoke night every Thursday. If you are going to start driving karaoke traffic, you're not going to be spending television ad dollars on that. Use organic means like social, and if you watch over time, it does not happen instantly. Over time, be consistent. Don't use the same message. Don't go with the spam mentality every Thursday, come see me for karaoke. But if you are mixing that up and using imagery and photos from last week's or announcing a winner or quick video snippets, those start to become more top of mind. And if you see a lift in how many people are starting to attend those type of events, that goes back into that ROI bucket of my efforts are at least paying off into something, which ultimately can lead to sales.
It's similar to advertising. The first time you run a TV spot, everyone doesn't come running into your store. It takes frequency. It takes repetition.
It does. You got to build that habit.
So last question before we wrap up for the day. So many channels, so little time. Does a brand have to be on all of them? That's an easy one.
My answer is no.
My answer is no.
I'm
glad we agreed.
We agreed. I think you have to be on the channels you're willing to participate in 110%. If you're not going to be there, don't be there. I think you should own, you need to own your Twitter handle for whatever your brand name is. But if you're not going to ever tweet about it, then that's fine. Just hold that so that you have that IP. But don't try to start a conversation and tweet every quarter just so that you can say you're there.
Right. And we've had brands say, how do I going to get more YouTube subscribers? And they post, 4 commercials a year.
I was going to say, they post their commercials?
Right. And, first of all, why would anyone subscribe? unless they really love your commercials.
I'm not one of those.
You know, if you're going to be on a channel, there is an investment, and I go back to the puppy analogy I stole from Sean McDonald, and that is if somebody asks to be on a channel, you return by saying, you have now asked me if you can adopt a puppy, and I'm going to ask you the plan for feeding that puppy and taking that puppy for a walk every day. And if you don't have that plan, you're going to kill the puppy, and I'm not going to let you kill the puppy.
It's going to pee on your floor.
It's going to pee on your floor. We don't want sick puppies in our marketing. So no. Only beyond the channels that you have the resources to support. So
I would agree with you. Be
fantastic.
Great. Don't be everywhere.
Fantastic. So that'll wrap us up. I want to thank you again, Erica from Expion. If you're not familiar with Expion, it is a great tool for social media management. I'm Jim Tobin with Ignite Social Media, and we will follow up with a email to you with a link to this deck and to the recording. Thanks so much for attending. Look for our next monthly webinar coming soon.
Thanks, guys.